Notes. Hope you all enjoy. Feel free to comment. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Chapter text. Asher. Asher didn't expect the slaughter that came. It had been peaceful since Deepwood Motte had been taken. Her Ironborn had grown complacent. The War of the Five Kings had left them untouched by the wolves of the north. The Northerners had their own problems to deal with that made Deepwood Motte a lesser concern. It had given her time and comfort, a place of refuge after her failed attempt at becoming Queen of the Iron Islands. Her uncle Euron had taken that title. She didn't want to get in his way, not yet at least. When he dies from his foolishness and Victarion from his vengeance, I'll be their only option. For now, she could wait in the motte. That ended with the screams that came in the dead of the night. She should have realized that something was wrong. The wolf's wood that surrounded the motte had gradually grown louder. The wolves and their howls had always been heard in the night. Asher had gotten used to it. But then the howls were coming more frequently, day and night. It was almost constant. The sounds were piercing, almost haunting. She'd lost a large portion of scouts and hunters that she'd sent to investigate it. Most didn't come back, and the ones that did said that they'd found their bodies savaged by wolves. She ordered her reavers to stay away from it. Asher should have taken that as a cue to leave the motte, but she thought against it. They were only wolves and there was nothing the Ironborn needed in the forest. Besides, where could I go anyway? Lord Harlaw might have been an option, but she already had Lady Sybil Glover children there as hostages. Lady Glover was in the motte. Her assurance for when the Northerners came. A bargaining chip for her own plans. Tonight though, what plans she had been shattered. She woke to screams in the middle of the night in the motte. Asher hurried out of her bed, getting her armor on as quickly as possible. By the time she got ready, axe and dirk in hand, the screams had become deafening. It was clearly a panic. We're being attacked. As she rushed out of the Ironwood Keep, she was met with a slaughter. There were bodies everywhere at the wooden walls, all of them Ironborn. She didn't see in the dim light of the torches a body with armor that could indicate that they weren't hers. Asher looked around to see her Ironborn fleeing from a group of Northmen. More were climbing over the walls. Asher's stomach dropped. The wolves have come. She watched the group of Ironborn get dropped by the Northmen, battle axes, and swords cutting them to pieces. Not a single Northman dropped. Carl the maid, her fuck, ran out of the keep, clearly hearing the same thing from wherever he had drunkenly slept. How in the hells did we get caught off? Carl yelled. The Northmen must have been the ones taking down the scouts and hunters, not the damned wolves. Asher yelled back. You've seen the bodies, Asher. They were killed by wolves, not men. The Northmen might as well be wolves. They were ruled by them for long enough. Carl gave a grim laugh. Then it's time we return to the sea, Asher. We need to get to our ships. Asher only nodded as they began to run, keeping as hidden as possible while they escaped the motte. It was being filled by Northmen. She could hear the drums and pipes skirling as they ran. She could hear the howls of the wolves. They are making impossible to hear anything. The two had made out of the motte well enough, climbing over the wooden walls like the Northmen had. They ran into the darkness. Other Ironborn must have had the same idea. She could faintly see their silhouettes, running towards the Bay of Ice, towards their ships. Ironborn didn't belong on the lands. Deepwood Motte was in war, being near the coast. But now that the Northmen were in the north, it was clearly a different matter. Asher had told Theon that once when he took Winterfell, acting like a Greenlander. And it got him flayed. Asher didn't plan on meeting that end as she ran with Carl. Luck seemed to be on their side as she began to feel the winds of the sea on her, and lights on the ships. Some of her Ironborn must have been preparing. She knew she would lose most of her ships. She had 30, and if the slaughter was any indication, she wouldn't have the men to mobilize them all. I'll be lucky to have 4 by the end of this night. Carl looked hopeful, running with his axe in hand, much like herself. The drums and pipes were getting louder. They are hunting the stragglers now. The howling had gotten louder as well. It made her stop. Carl. He stopped. What woman? The howling's in front of us, Carl. She shouted. Asher tried looking for the Ironborn in front of her. She couldn't see as many before. They were vanishing. Then she heard another scream and thrashing. One of the faint outlines had dropped to something. They've got wolves. She shouted. Carl cursed. Shit, then what do we do? Asher didn't know. They were clearly being herded, trapped on all sides. Run forward, they'll step over us if we run any other direction. The boats are our best shot if we can get past. If not, we can treat. Carl gave her a nod and they ran again into the darkness towards the howling. Asher noticed as she ran that she was going over bodies of her own men. She could smell the blood and shit. They had died terrified. As they got closer to the lights of the ship, Asher could make out banners. Banners with bears on. More mants. There were more men there than she could count. And at their feet were wolves, with a giant white one at its front. Even in dim torch light she could see the red eyes. Blood-red eyes they were. The two slowed down as they got closer, raising her hands. There was no way out of it. Asher shouted at the Northmen. Who leads you? I wish to treat. Asher watched as a woman marched to the front, buxom in the northern way, with brown hair and brown eyes. She was in full armor. Ailey Sain Mormorn. Why should we treat with squids who reave our lands? Asher took a breath. I have Lady Glover's children on my uncle's island. My uncle will trade me for them. Alisane's face turned to a scowl. And what's to stop us from taking the island without you? We have your ships. Asher smiled. You don't know which island, and my uncle will kill them without me. Asher was too busy to notice Carl try and swing his axe at the Mormorn, hoping to take a chance. He didn't make it as Asher heard his scream. She turned in horror to see Carl's arm had been sliced clean off by the man who had come from behind. She watched as the giant white wolf rushed forward, tearing into his throat. The blood spattered across her. She looked at the dead body, with the white wolf staring at her, snarling. The beast looked like something out of a nightmare. She couldn't stop looking at it though, as she was being surrounded by all of the Northmen. When she finally looked up from the beast, she saw a man standing beside Alysanne Mormorn. The man was dressed in northern attire, knife attached at the leg and sword at the hip. Looking at the man's face, she could make out grey eyes and dark hair. The face was long. She remembered Eddard Stark's face when he took Pike. A Stark. It was the same look, just different. It looked savage. The glint in the eyes looked angry. His mouth looked ready to give a snarl. He looked like he was going to tear into like the wolf. She was fucked. The Stark before her said nothing, just looking at her hard. He was eyeing her. Not like men usually did though. Not a look of lust. She might have felt a little safer if it was. He looked like he was ready to kill her. He was looking at her like prey. The long-faced savage took one last look then motioned to the Mormorn. Asher didn't notice the Mormor knock her into the ground with a fist. Asher was looking at the Stark, starting to give orders to his men, as she drifted out of consciousness. This isn't the Honorable Ned Stark. This is a wolf.